Hi, welcome to today's presentation. My name is Obalim Esedebe, and today we're going to be looking at Primavera P6. Primavera P6, of course, is one of the best project management tools, especially if you're a project manager and you want to schedule. So you might want to consider Primavera P6. And one of the major advantages of using Primavera P6 is the fact that it helps you to manage large-scale projects, and if not for anything, you will have your project in one place. So this is the interface. So when you launch your Primavera P6, and then use your password and sign in accordingly. So when you sign in to your Primavera P6, it will load for a while. And then after the loading session, you will probably have a view like this. So this is the interface of Primavera P6. So first of all, we'll just take a look at this particular interface for our Primavera P6 for us to be able to understand some of the things that you see all around in your Primavera P6. Now, it is necessary that you note that Primavera P6, in most cases, the windows are divided into three major parts, which are what I call the timeline. Then we have the Gantt view. And then you now have a third layer, which we now refer to as the detail view. So when you launch your Primavera, there's every chance it will bring you to this particular page. First of all, for you to know what page you are, you usually see it at the very top of your Primavera P6, telling you that this is the exact page which you are looking at. So at this very moment, we're looking at the projects page. So in this particular project page, if you notice, I have a lot of projects already lined up in my Primavera P6, a whole lot of them. And if you also have noticed, you will also discover that each of these projects is, under a particular subset or a particular subgroup. You can see all of them are under the enterprise, which of course probably represents your whole portfolio or all the projects you have in your organization. And within that particular enterprise, you now have different subheadings. For example, we have engineering and construction projects. We also have energy services projects. We have manufacturing projects. We have product development projects. And then we also have corporate programs projects. Aside from that, we also have information technology project. So if you notice, all of these subgroups or groupings that we have in Primavera P6 that is represented by an icon that looks like a pyramid is what we refer to as the EPS. EPS simply means Enterprise Project Structure. And Enterprise Project Structure in most cases is what you use to group projects within your Primavera P6. So if you now look within each of these EPS, you're going to see different projects that we have in there. For example, under the engineering and construction EPS, notice that I have car center office building project. I also have Nesby building expansion project. Then I have high tank corporate park project. And these are all engineering and construction project. The same also with our energy services projects under energy services. These are the different projects. So for me to open any of these projects, I have different ways to do that. But then one way to do that is you select whatever project you want to open, then you right click on it and you click on Open Project. So when you click on Open Project, Primavera P6 will open the project for you, and you're going to see now that what we're now looking at is the activities window or the activities page. Remember, initially we were in the project page. This is the project page from where we opened this particular project. Now, if you notice, the icon for this very project, which of course used to be a closed folder, has now changed and is now looking like an open folder. So if you notice also, the other projects are represented in closed folders, which illustrates the fact that they are not open. So the project that I have currently open is this very first project, which is the City Center Office Building project. And that is why the folder is showing as open. So if I navigate back to the activities page, so this is the activities page, and this is essentially what your Primavera P6 would look like. Now, in this activities page, it is necessary that you first of all understand the different components of your Primavera P6 for you to have a better understanding of what each component is. Now, we have this part, this part of our Primavera P6 is what we refer to as the timeline view. So this is the timeline view, and in many cases, this is where the action actually takes place. That's on the timeline view. And aside from the timeline view, you now have what we refer to as the Gantt view. Now, this portion of our Primavera P6 is known as the Gantt view. The essence of the Gantt view is that anything we do in the timeline view, we're going to see the graphical illustration in the Gantt view. You can notice that for each of these activities I have in my Primavera P6, you will also notice that all of them have an illustration, which is what we refer to as the Gantt, that illustrates each of these projects. You will notice that in project management, the Gantt is actually a very useful tool that we use to be able to track the stage of activities, or even to track the stage of the project in the course of the project implementation. Then we have a third view, which we refer to as the detail view. The detail view is at the bottom part of your screen, and in this particular detail view, you can also work in this detail view. If you don't want to, enter information in your timeline view, you can also enter those set of information in the detail view. So the essence of the detail view is when I click on any activity, it shows me the detail of that particular activity in the detail view. Depending on the detail I want to see, if I want to see the predecessors, for example, like I'm clicking, when I click on the predecessors view, it shows me the predecessor of this very activity. Same also with any other activity. Same also with any other activity in my Primavera P6 that I click on, that I probably would want to see the predecessor. Same also with successors, and then don't forget feedback. Of course, there are also other different tabs that we can possibly add in the detail view, and depending on how useful they are to you and what you actually want to use them for. But for now, in many cases, these are some of the tabs or the general tabs that you may possibly find in the details view. Now, aside from the details view, if you also notice, by the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see certain icons there. Those icons that we have on the left-hand side of the screen, all together, we refer to this left-hand side of my screen as the directory bar. Now, the essence of the directory bar, just like every other directory, is that it helps us to navigate in our Primavera P6 from one page to another. For example, if I want to get to the project page, I click on project in the directory bar, it takes me to the project page. If I want to get to the resources page, I click on resources in my directory bar, it takes me to the resources page for my project. If I want to also look at reports, I click on the reports icon. You can also notice that there's a tracking icon in the directory bar. If I want to track my project, for example, I click on the tracking icon, and then it displays my project, and then also displays each phase or each work package in my project. And then I can choose exactly what to see in my, I can choose exactly what to see in the tracking page of my project, depending exactly, what information I want to get at, and then essentially, what tracking I want to do at this very moment in time. I want to be able to interpret, or I want to check the status of my project. All of that I can do from this very page. Aside from that, I also have the activities view. Remember, we have already opened our activities view. So if I click on activities icon in my directory view, it takes me back to the activities page, which was headed to where we were earlier on. Then there are also other icons like the WBS, that's the work breakdown structure. So if, for example, I want to see my project's WBS, I click on the WBS icon, and when I click on the WBS icon, it shows me the work breakdown structure for this very project. You can also note that if you don't have enough space to look at some of the things in your timeline, you can also navigate, you can also move your detail view just by clicking on it and dragging it and placing it in appropriate position where you want it to be. Aside from that, we can also look at our resource assignment. The resource assignment essentially helps us to understand how our resources are allocated in a particular project. So it helps to determine the number of period a particular resource person will work, and then of course how long that person may possibly be engaged in the project. Aside from that, also another very important icon there is your work products as well as project documents. So I can upload my project documents in my Primavera P6, and then any other relevant document that I'll possibly be needing in my P6. I can also look at my expenses, and that's essentially what the expense icon helps me to do, and then also risks that I've already captured in this very project, which can actually be recorded here. I've not recorded, there's none for this very project, and that's why this place is blank. Now, aside from that, there are also other buttons you may choose to add. So if you click on the more buttons here, it will take you to where you can possibly add more buttons in your Primavera P6. So whatever buttons you want to add, all you simply need to do is you check that particular button. For example, if I want to add issues, or my project threshold, or my project baselines, all of these are some of the other buttons that you may want to add in your Primavera P6. Okay, so back to the activities page. Aside from the icons on the left-hand side of your screen, which is what we call the directory bar, if you go to the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the icons there. There are also other icons there. And those icons on the right-hand side of the screen, those are what we now refer to as the command bar. Just like the name sounds, command. So from here, you can give instructions or commands to your Primavera P6, and that's why it is termed a command bar. So if you look, the icons you have in the command bar are command icons. For example, you have add. If, for example, I want to add a new activity, I can click on add. You also have delete. If I want to delete any of these activities there, I can click on delete. Aside from that, I also have cut. Then I also have copy. You have paste. Then there are also other very nice items or icons that you can also have in your command bar. For example, resources. If I want to create resources, I can click on this. If I want to assign resources to activities in my Primavera P6, I can click on resources icon, and then I can also from here assign roles. And then not just that, there are also other icons like activity code. I can also assign predecessors to activities as well as activity successors, and then also steps that I'm going to be using in my P6. And don't forget, if I want to add further buttons, I can simply go to add buttons page and then determine whatever additional buttons I may want to add. Then you will also notice that you have a specific set of icons here, although they are not highlighted. But essentially, we're going to see how to use them. You see arrow pointing up, which is the move up arrow. Then you'll also see the move down arrow. Then aside from that, you will see the move left arrow and the move right arrow. So these arrows essentially will help us to be able to organize items within our P6 if we want it to go up or come down or to be in any particular location. So remember, so far we've talked about the timeline view, and this is a timeline view where we enter our project activities and some other project information. And like I made mention earlier on, this is where the action takes place. And then you have the Gantt view. In the Gantt view, what you do in the timeline view shows up in the Gantt view in the form of graphical illustration, also known as Gantt. And they essentially gives you a pictorial representation of activities as well as what packages that you have in your timeline view. And don't forget, we have the detailed view, which enables us to have a detailed oversight or have a detailed view of activities that we have in our Primavera P6. Now, we also have another layer, which of course we now refer to as the tools bar. If you notice where I'm hovering my mouse, you can see different icons there, and that represents the toolbar. And essentially, part of the things the tools bar, just like every other tool, helps us to do is that these are very important tools that we can use in our Primavera P6. And some of them include the project spotlight, the progress spotlight. The progress spotlight helps you to be able to, determine exactly a specific set of activities to update in your Primavera P6, especially when you have a lot of activities and you don't even know which ones are supposed to have been done in a particular week or in a particular month. So you can use the progress spotlight to be able to spotlight on a given set of or some set of activities that needs updating. And there are also a whole lot of that which we're going to be looking at much more later. And then don't forget, we also have the different menus, just like we are well aware of in a whole lot of other softwares or solutions. You have some of the menus we have there includes the file menu. So if I click on the file menu, it drops down. And part of the things that are in the file menu, from here I can create a new project. I can also open existing project. I can close all open projects. And then I can also set up my Primavera P6 for printing. I can import. Part of the things the importing part does for us is, if for example I click on import, I can import another Primavera P6 product or another Primavera product, as it were. I can also import information from spreadsheet. So just for example, you have done your activities or work breakdown structure in the spreadsheet, I can import them here straight. I can also import from Primavera P6, or rather from Primavera P3. I can of course also import Microsoft Project, just like if you've created your project using Microsoft Project and you want to move them to Primavera P6, you can actually import them here straight. Now, aside from the import button, we also have export, just the opposite of import. The export helps you to export your Primavera P6. For example, if our systems are not integrated, if our Primavera P6 solution is not integrated, and I want to maybe send, my schedule that I've drafted or the work that I've done in my Primavera P6 to someone else, I can simply export it. So I can export it as Primavera P6 16.2 or later version. I can also, export it as Primavera Contractor. This is another, Oracle product. I can also export it as a spreadsheet, that is your Excel, or even as P3. I can also export it as Microsoft Project from 2002 up until later versions, as it were. So these are some of the ways I can actually export my Primavera P6 projects that I've scheduled. I can also directly email my schedule here or my Primavera P6 as an attachment if I don't want to export and start attaching and all of that. So I could just click on send, and when I do that, it will automatically attach it in your email, and then will send to any relevant authority using your Outlook. And there are also other very nice icons there. For example, if I want to open a particular portfolio, or if I want to exit my Primavera P6, I could simply click on exit here. Aside from that, we also have the edit menu. From the edit menu, you can see some very popular commands like copy, cut, or cut, copy, paste, add, delete, dissolve. We can assign resources, roles, activity codes, predecessors, and successors. You can also select a specific set of items, or you go to user preferences. Part of the thing the user preferences does for us is that it helps us to be able to tweak the layout, not just the layout, specific set of information in our P6, so that we essentially know what we would, some of the things you want in your P6. Aside from that, this is also a very good part or portion to enable you set up your Primavera P6. Say probably you want to set it up before commencing your schedule. You can also do all of that from the user preferences. Now we have after the edit menu, we also have the view tab, and part of the things the view tab does for us is from here we can choose the particular layout for our Primavera P6. Note that if you look at my P6, you can see that the layout I have is classic schedule layout. I can choose different layouts for my P6 depending on exactly what layout I am looking at. For example, if I want to change the layout, I can go and choose a different layout. If I don't want to choose the classic schedule layout, which is exactly what I have here, I can choose the classic WBS layout, and if I choose the classic WBS layout and I click on apply, it will apply to the layout in my Primavera P6. You can see this is the classic WBS layout. You can see it looks way different from the classic schedule layout that we had earlier on. I can also choose a classic schedule layout with line number, and if I choose that, it also gives me another layout depending on what layout I want to work with. But then in many cases, I like to work either from the classic WBS layout or work from the classic layout. These are some of the two layouts that I really like to work in many cases. Of course, I also like the classic I also like the classic schedule layout with number. Just in case you want to see the specific numbering for every item you have in your Primavera P6, you can actually choose this very layout. Okay, so let's go back to the layout that we were in before now. I click on cancel so I can close this very window. Now, aside from the layout, note that I can also decide on things to show at the top of my Primavera. For example, I don't want to see the Gantt anymore. I can only display my tables. For example, you can see the Gantt has disappeared. I can also choose to show the Gantt, and not just that, at the bottom, if I don't want to display the detail view, that's this very layer of my Primavera P6, I can actually decide either to display this very layer or not to display this very layer, and that's essentially what the show on bottom helps me to do. If I want to remove the detail view from my P6, I can simply go to view, show on bottom, and then I click on no bottom layout, and if I do that, you will discover that the detail view has actually been removed, so I don't have the detail view displayed in my Primavera P6 anymore. Now, aside from that, I can change my bars. If I don't want these colorations, or if I don't want it in this particular order, I can also decide things to display in my Gantt. Either currently I have the title of the project displayed or the title of each activity. I can decide other things to add to each of these bars, maybe add the start time, finish time for each activity. I can even decide on where to locate them, whether after the bar or on top of the bar or even below the bar. Then I can also add columns. Part of the things that you see in your timeline is what we refer to as columns. You can see I have different columns here. I have activity ID column, I have activity name column, I also have original duration column, I have remaining duration column, I have schedule percent complete column, start finish, and then total flow. So if I want to either remove or add columns, I can do that from the detail view by clicking on view. I can do that from the views menu by clicking on view and then clicking on columns. So when I do that, the columns window pops up. So you can see in this particular part, these are the columns that I already have displayed in my Primavera P6. And by the left hand side, there are also myriads of other columns that I can possibly add depending on exactly what I want to see or the information I want to see in my timeline. These are some other columns that I can possibly add. So, okay, let me try and add one here. So if, for example, I want to add my budgeted total cost, I select budgeted total cost. I can double click on it to add it, or I click on this single icon and then it adds it to my list. Let me bring it down to after remaining duration. So if I want to add this very column, which is budgeted total cost, to my timeline, I now click on apply. So once I click on apply, you can see total budgeted total cost shows up as part of the columns in my timeline after the remaining duration column, just like I have it here, and then I click on OK. There are also other very nice icons that you have in the views in the views part, and some of which are already displayed in your tools bar. But then these are also very nice icons that I can actually use to do depending on exactly what I want to see. So I want to show my details view again so that it still remains in part of what we are seeing. Now, aside from that, I also have the project part, and the project menu basically helps us to navigate from one page to the other. For example, I want to see my activities or resource assignments or the VPS. Now, note that both of the things you have in this menu are both of the things that have displayed on the directory bar. And part of the reason why these icons are displayed in your directory bar, in your toolbar, in your command bar, you will also see those same set of items in any of these menus in your Primavera P6. Part of the reasons why Oracle or the makers of this solution displays this set of icons is that they become a click away, so that if I want to click on a particular icon, for example, I want to see my WBS, I can simply go here and click on WBS, as against having to click on the menu and then now going and selecting the work breakdown structure. Now, another very important and vital aspect of your Primavera P6 is the enterprise menu. The enterprise menu is basically what you use to create bulk of the things you have in your P6. So if, for example, I want to create a new project, I can simply start from clicking on enterprise and then project. If I want to create a new EPS, I can also click on enterprise and then I click on EPS. If I want to track, I can also do that. If I want to create a new project portfolio, I can also do that from this very window, or create new resource or roles, or create our organization breakdown structure. That's the OBS. So these are myriads of things I can create. I can even make my own calendars from here. Notice that your P6 will be running in most cases on a default calendar, which is the corporate standard calendar. If I got that right, I will still need to check. Okay, let's just check that. Yeah, okay, so it's corporate standard full-time calendar, yeah. So that's the calendar that P6 is currently running, and you can see it is selected as the default calendar. But if I want to change the calendar, and let's say we work 6 days, 24 hours, I can select this calendar, or 7 days, 24 hours, I can select this calendar, or we work 10 hours a day for 5 days, I can select this calendar, and all of that. And don't forget, you can always create your own calendar just in case you don't see any befitting calendar that your project will run on, and that's basically what you do from this menu. Now, we also have the tools menu, and the tools menu also contains bulk of the icons that you have in your tools bar, and this is basically where I can update my project progress, I can apply actuals, I can also do resource leveling, just in case I have over allocation, I can level my resources from this very end. I can also schedule. This is also a very important aspect because it helps us to be able to automatically schedule our project in Primavera P6, and also a whole lot of other icons. One very important also thing we're going to be looking at here is reports. This is basically where we can do our reports from. I can either choose to go to reports. Let's say senior management asks you for reports. Depending on the report they want, I can run all my reports from this. Or I can use a report wizard, and just like every other wizard, it will direct me on exactly what to do depending on the kind of report I want to look at. Then the admin portion helps us to create currencies. If, for example, I want to create currencies, Primavera P6 comes with some currencies, but not all countries' currencies are represented in your Primavera P6. I'm from Nigeria, and you can see that I'm looking at the currency window right now, and these are the specific currencies that I have in my Primavera P6. And unfortunately, I really don't know why that should be the case. There is no Nigerian Naira as part of the currencies. So if you find yourself in this kind of, do I say, precarious situation that your country's currency is not listed in as part of the solution, don't get angry or upset about it. You can, of course, also create your own currency. All you simply need to do here is to click on Add, and the moment you do that, it will create a space for you. Let's just do that so that you can see what I'm talking about. So it creates a space for you to enter your own currency. So I can enter Nigerian Naira, okay, and I'll enter the currency symbol, which is NGN, and then the currency ID, I also enter it as NGN. Then I choose the current exchange rate, depending on the exchange rate to the US dollar, because the US dollar is denominated in US dollars. So if I want to choose the current exchange rate for my country, it is about 300 naira per dollar. So I enter that, and so if, for example, I had done estimates initially using the US dollar, if I now assign the Nigerian naira to those set of estimates or convert those estimates to Nigerian naira, it will, of course, use the exchange rate of $1 to 300 naira. So that's essentially what this helps us to do. So when I'm done, I click on close. And you also notice that aside from the currency, we have admin preferences. We also have admin categories. Admin preferences are usually very, very nice. If I click on admin preferences, it brings up this particular window for me. Part of the things that my admin preferences can do for me is I can look at my end value calculation from here and be able to determine exactly how I want it to be. It shows you the underlying formula that is used to determine some of these items. And then I can also look at reports, and also it shows you some of the things that will be captured in your project report. I can, decide on, to change the title of the report. If I don't want it in this particular order, I can choose another one, depending on exactly how you want it. I can also go to options. If my calendar, I don't want it to be by week, I can choose it to be a monthly calendar, but then let's leave it at weekly. Now, of course, most of these things are already, set at standard rates. So if you really could get confused about what each of these items signify, I would just suggest you leave them at the default value, and you will just be fine with the items that are already listed there. Now, aside from admin preferences, I also have my admin categories, and the admin categories is also very necessary because from here I can create my expense categories. It gives me default expense categories, but if there are other expense heads I want to add in my project, I can also add them here. Then also here, I can also, create my WBS categories depending on the different categories I want to have. But then notice by default, you have the 5 process groups that you have in project management. And that's initiating, planning, executing. Okay, I used to think that executing comes first before monitoring and control, but then in many cases I can actually shift this up. But then in many cases, as you're executing, you're checking, so whichever comes first, it is just fine. So as we execute, we monitor and control, and when we're done, we close. I can also decide on the different document categories that I want to have, and then of course my document status, then my risk categories, my notebook topics, and then this very important part, which is unit of measure. The unit of measure helps you to create units that you're going to use to measure your material resources. We're going to see that much more later, but then measuring the material resources, some of them will be measured each, some of them will be measured in tons, some of them may be measured in dollar, some of them may be measured in lump sum, some of them may be measured in bags, cubic yards, cubic meters, and all of that. So if any of the units of measure is not captured here, don't forget, you can always add your own unit of measure. For example, I could add bags, depending on exactly what I'm buying. I could say bags of cement. So I can measure my cement in tons. I can also measure it in bags, depending on which way you want to go about it. So that's essentially what this unit of measure helps us to do. And don't forget, you also have your currencies here, and we have looked at this earlier on. Here we can create new currencies and also choose a default currency. Then you also have your financial periods, and financial periods basically, depending on which financial period you're running, you will have different options here for the 12 months of the year. So if, for example, your financial period ends 31st December, you can, choose this, or if it ends in November or, or September or June or July. So you can choose any financial period you want. Now, don't forget, anytime you run into trouble, you can always use the help to be able to get information on exactly what to do, and that's essentially what the help here does for you. And one very key thing you also need to understand is some of these icons here, we can actually move them depending on where we want to place them. For example, if I don't want this here and I want it here, I can, bring it to exactly where I want it. So you can see I removed it from my directory bar and I have it at the top. If I wanted to, maybe I prefer looking at these icons from the top, I can move them around. I can also, bring them back to where they used to be. Same also with the icons in your detail view, in your tools bar and your command bar, as well as your detail view. You can always move them around to exactly where you want them to be. Okay, so that's the basic introduction of Primavera P6 and how the interface looks like. I hope this particular video has been informative for you. In the next video, I'm going to be sharing how to create a new project, how to create work breakdown structure, and how to get up and running with Primavera P6 so that at least you can do some basic things using your Primavera P6 and it will help you schedule your project, and then you probably will not need to bother about so much other thing, because as much as possible you can almost get running with this. Please, if you have any question or comment, you can include this in the comment section of this particular video, or if there's any topic you want me to discuss on Primavera P6 or you have any explanation to seek, just include it in the comment, and then I'm going to have to respond to them as quickly as I can. And don't forget, you can also reach us by visiting on our website, which is www.clgr.com, where you can actually schedule for either a classroom training, online training, or a complete course on Primavera P6. Or if you have a project and you want us to help you with the scheduling of the project, you can also get in touch with us and we can help you with all of that and do your professional tracking and also help you in communicating your project status as much as you would want it. I hope this particular video has been informative for you. I really want to thank you for listening. Once again, my name is Obalin and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.